Hello and welcome to the Illuminate podcast. I'm your host, Sydney Minetto. Is this my fifth time recording this? Yes, it is no fault of my own. I blame it on my children. Although it is my fault because I decided to try to record during the week. But it's because I made a commitment for weekly episodes. And while it's not Wednesday, it's Friday. We're close enough, we're going to count it as a win. And I know it's like the joke, but man, if it doesn't feel true that it feels like January 78th. Like, what a month. It's January 31st. Tomorrow is officially February. We can put January behind us. January has been great in a lot of ways. It's not like it's been the most terrible month of my life. It's just been long. And we, like many, have been battling these coughs from hell that just keep circulating around, and that one kid gets and then another gets, then I think we're over, and then someone wakes up coughing in the night. And so February, we're going to manifest the crap out of it. It's going to be a healthier month for everyone. Those of you that have been battling sicknesses too, we got this. We can do it. We can hang in there. Tomorrow is officially February, and it's the month of love, which I'm excited about. On the podcast, we'll be talking about love in different ways, not just romantic love, although probably that too. I'm going to have Tyler, my husband, on here with me for one of these episodes during the month of February. But I used to hate February. I really did. My family can attest to this. I was fully on the it's a stupid holiday, Valentine's Day. It's dumb. It's Single Awareness Day. I was single for many years and I was mad about it. And you know what? If that's where you're at, that's okay. I don't think that's bad. I don't think it's terrible. But I do want to encourage you to maybe reframe. I wish someone would have told me that, to be like, okay, I understand sometimes it's hard being single, but why don't you just give yourself more love? Because at that point in my life, especially, I was seeking so much. I was seeking love, which obviously companionship is great. And I love being married. I love my husband. I love my kids. But I was also trying to outsource my happiness. I was like, if I am loved, if I'm in a relationship, if I have a snuggle buddy, if I have someone interested in me, if I'm dating someone, then I'll be happy. Then I'll feel fulfilled. Then I'll know that I'm worth loving. Then I'll know that I have value, right? So I would challenge you, if you are single in the month of February, you can do a lot of different things. You can focus on, first of all, the love you do have. Maybe it's from your parents. Maybe it's from a sibling. Maybe it's your best friend that's been there for you. Maybe it's from your cat or your dog. Or I had a brief stint as a fish owner when I was single to my fish named Albus. And to this day, one of my saddest things is I actually forgot about this. So I was moving from Texas to Utah shortly after meeting my husband, well, my now husband. We were dating at the time. And he was helping me pack up my apartment. He was helping me drive everything back to Utah to move. So we're getting packed up. We have sold crap on Facebook Marketplace. We're ready to go. And then we realize we have this fish. And I'm like, what do I do with this fish? So I text a couple friends. I'm like, hey, who wants Albus? And crickets. No one wants this fish. And I was like, I can't just flush him. He's been a good fish. He's been my emotional support fish. I've talked to him when I've been navigating single life. Because this fish lasted forever. They're supposed to last a couple weeks, right? No. This fish lasted, it had been months and months. So we were like, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to leave him in the hall of my apartment. So it was an interior hall. And we left him with a note that was please take this fish to a good home. So I hope no one's cat got him. And I hope that Albus is still thriving, living his best life as an emotional support animal. So if it's an animal that you're grateful for showing you unconditional love or support or snuggles or whatever it may be grateful for that. So that's one thing you can do, is you could focus on the good, right? What we think about, we bring about. That's what I'm looking for. And the other thing you can do is you can choose to show more love to others. You can choose to spread kindness and joy. Heaven knows we always need more kindness and joy and love. And maybe that's a simple way. Maybe you decide to not have your phone out when you're checking out at the grocery store, and that you interact with the person checking you out instead. That's something I started doing after hearing it actually on a podcast. I don't even remember which one. A few years ago, I always stick my phone in my pocket. And now with my kids, I'll have them interact with whoever is checking us out. And maybe that's how you decide to spread love. Maybe you volunteer for the month of February. Maybe you find an organization or cause you feel passionate about and you start spending your time that way. That is a beautiful way to celebrate the month of love, even if you have a hard time with February and Valentine's Day. And of course, who would I be if I didn't talk about having some more self-love? And if you, at the least, give yourself some more love, do something that you've wanted to do. Maybe do something that you've been afraid to do as a way to show yourself love, to prove to yourself that you can. Maybe you've always wanted to take a yoga class. Sign up for a yoga class. Maybe there's a course you've been wanting to try, or a skill you've been wanting to learn, or a new hobby you've wanted to pick up. Pick up the pickleball paddles. That was some good alliteration. Pick up the pickleball paddles and start playing. Like, maybe that's how you show yourself love. Maybe there are some things you need to let go of. Maybe you are going to make a journal entry and burn the page and surrender the things that you're still holding on to that aren't serving you anymore. That is another beautiful way to celebrate love for yourself. So those are some ways to kind of take the power back. And of course, to my non-single friends, I do have to do a plug for what helped make Valentine's Day successful in my relationship, in my marriage. Sorry, coughs from hell. But I, once again, on a podcast, when I was very first married, she was sharing that she tells her husband her expectations for Valentine's, holidays, birthdays, all the things, and how she just lets him know, like, hey, I expect a card. Hey, I expect this. Hey, here are 3 ideas. I would like at least 2 gifts. And at first I was like, that's not romantic. Like, I want him to like just know and be thoughtful. And then our first Valentine's Day, I was mad. I was secretly resentful because I had these expectations. I had these ideas of how, not just Valentine's, but other holidays too. Holidays and birthdays. I had ideas in my head and in my mind about how they should look. What I didn't do was tell Tyler that, my husband. I didn't let him know. And as great of a husband as he is not a mind reader. So he had no freaking clue. So he is doing the best he can. He thinks this is great. And I'm like, just secretly just mad. Like, he didn't even get flowers. Like, how lame. Or he didn't even get a card. He only got flowers. Like, whatever it was, right? And then I remember this podcast that I'd heard. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. So I think it was like our second Valentine's Day together. Maybe our third. I don't know. Somewhere earlier than now. I told him, I was like, hey, I would love flowers for Valentine's Day, like beautiful, like not ones from Smith's or Albertsons. Like, I would love like real flowers. He's like, okay. Another time I was like, hey, I would love for you to plan the date. Like, I don't want to have to worry about the babysitter. I don't want to have to worry about dinner. I want you to make the reservation. I don't care where it is, as long as it's like a nicer restaurant. But I want you to plan it all, including the babysitter. He was like, okay. So he did. And guess what? It was actually more romantic because instead of me harboring resentment for him not being able to read my mind, essentially, we were set up for success. So I was feeling grateful. I was feeling more love to him. He had told me his expectations, whatever they were. Maybe it's usually like a card. He likes words of affirmation. And so he was like, I would like a card with a heartfelt message or whatever it may be, or a home cooked dinner, or I would love for you to make like my favorite treat. I'm like, great. And instead of either of us being mad or frustrated, or for him, I know part of it too, is he was always like, he knew there were expectations, but he didn't know what they were. So he was like feeling this pressure. So it'd be like, I got you this, but like, I don't know. And he's like, and so that he wasn't enjoying the holidays because he knew he was going to end up in the doghouse basically. And so we just started saying our expectations, and it's been more fun and more romantic. And so there are times where if I don't say it, guess what? It's on me. It's called content communicating. You communicate, you say it explicitly what you need. And if you don't, then it's not on your partner, it's on you. So like this year, I was like, I don't care what we do, actually. I'm fine with takeout and just like watching a movie at home. Now, when push comes to shove, if we do that and I'm actually not okay with it, my fault. That's what I told him. Like, that's what I communicated to him. He doesn't know otherwise. So that's my little plug for if you are in a relationship, and if you haven't tried that, try it, because it can really change things, and it's still romantic, I promise, because you'll feel more loved and they'll feel more loved and appreciated, and vice versa. And it's just gonna be this reciprocal, beautiful cycle of love and non-resentment, which is always great. So there's my little spiel about Valentine's Day, but I've just been thinking a lot about it, a lot about love. I also have small children who are like so excited. Any holiday, if you have children, you know, they are so excited for Valentine's. They're like, how many sleeps? They, my older two are both in like a part-time school. I think I shared that maybe on a previous episode, but they will be having a Valentine's party for the first time in their lives, and they're really excited even though they have no idea. So like we were at the store and we picked out Valentines, like little boxes, you know, little character Valentines, and they're like, I can't wait to play with these. And I'm like, these are not for you, like these are for the kids in your class, and you're going to give them like a little treat or a little toy with it, and then they'll give them to you. And they were like, everyone will? And I'm like, yes. It's called like a Valentine's like exchange, like you'll all get to make them and you'll make these little mailboxes. So they're just like trying to like figure out what it's going to be, but they're so excited. So it's really fun. So it always makes it more exciting, like holidays and stuff, when you have cute kids, you know, counting down sleeps for it. But so I've been thinking a lot about it, a lot about love. And then a couple weeks ago, we were on, a friend of mine, her and her husband have a podcast about relationships, and they invited us to be on it. And it was funny at first. Tyler and I were talking, and he's like, why would they want us? Like, like, why would they want us? Like, what? Like, we're just regular people. And I'm like, yeah, we are a regular couple. But I liked what they said. They were like, it's so interesting because couples and dynamics and relationships are all so different. Things that are normal to you as a couple will be totally brand new information to another couple, the way that you do it. So it was really fun going on there and just sharing some of our story and some of what we found successful in our relationship. And like they brought up Minetto family debates, which are what we do on Instagram. If you follow my personal page, we do like these stupid like things that we're just like are like, that's not real, and it's like, yes it is. We have different opinions, we'll take it to the gram, as we say. So it's like, you know, I think the most recent one is it normal to abbreviate cucumbers as cukes? And Tyler was like, that's not normal. And I'm like, yes it is. Like it's at restaurants, like it's food, like food bloggers will say cukes, like it's very normal. And he was like, it's not real. It was real. I won that one. I do win most of them, but sorry, it's beside the point, but it's great. And since then I have like had multiple people send me like they spelled the word cukes in the wild. Like my sister-in-law sent it, and it was at the grocery store, like labeled as cukes, the cucumbers. Or Tyler and I were at a restaurant and it was listed on the menu as cukes, and I was like, ha, like take that, dude. So, but like in a, you know, loving, fun, playful way. But so that's why they had us on. As we were talking, we kind of kept hitting home this point that about relationships and about, you know, kind of like a surrendering aspect of relationships. And that's what I wanted to talk a little bit more about today, because it's something that I have learned a lot in recent years. I've learned a lot in my life, actually, through different experiences. And that's the concept of the fact that you cannot change someone else. You cannot make them do anything. You cannot change them. You cannot love them into changing. Like the other person, if it's in a romantic relationship, if it's in a friendship, if it's a relationship with you and one of your parents or your in-laws, you are not in control of the other person. And we like to, because we like safety, we like to feel regulated, our nervous systems like familiarity, we like to try to think we can control other people, and not always in a negative way. It's not like I want them to do this for me, but it's like even our kids, we have kind of like a false sense of control when they're younger, but we truly don't control them. Like I don't control my kids. I can guide them, I can teach them, I can encourage them, but they ultimately are going to do what they want. And sometimes that means they have a consequence, right? Like in our family, like that means that there might be a repercussion if it's something that goes against a family rule or whatever it may be, but I'm not controlling them. Like they're not robots. And with Tyler, my husband, I'm not controlling him. Like no matter what, ultimately, I just have to let him do what he wants. Now, that doesn't mean he can do things. I feel like before this, I have to give like a big caveat. Like I posted something on Instagram the other day, on my Luminary Wellness page, which is my business page, and I posted just a quote that, well, just I made up. Does it count as a quote if it's me that said it? I guess so. You can quote me. But I just said, stop wasting your energy trying to control other people when you could instead use that energy to love them. So that's that surrender piece, right? Like, maybe I'll use the example of going to the gym, although Tyler has always been more consistent going to the gym than me until recently. Now we're both consistent, but we'll use that just as an example. So let's say I really want Tyler to start working out. I'm like, dude, you need to start working out, right? I can tell him that 1,000 times over and over again. I can be like, hey, start working out. Hey, you should go to the gym. Hey, let's do this. Until he decides to, it does not matter what I do, right? What can I control in that situation though? Me. I can control if I'm going to the gym. I can control how I'm treating him when he doesn't go to the gym. I can control the positive reinforcement and words or love or just acknowledgement I give when he does go to the gym, right? So ultimately, we only control ourselves. And I know when this point first really started hitting home a couple years ago, I did have a moment where I was like, shiz. Like, I hate that. Like, I want to control other people. Makes me sound like a dictator, but it was from like a good place, right? Okay, here's a real life example. So I was doing a course with my friend Sarah Johnson as my guide, and she's like one of my spiritual gurus. She was on episode 3 maybe or 4, and I remember we were setting some goals, and we had to write down what we wanted in the next 3 months, like some specific things. It was this whole exercise, but just for the point of the story. So I wrote down like a couple things. Then one of my goals was I want to help Tyler quit his job. And excuse me, so we had to share it. And I start reading my goals. I'm like, I want to do X, I want Z, and I want it to look like this. And I want to help Tyler quit his job. And Sarah immediately was like, cross it off. And I was like, no, like that's really important. Like it's going to help our family function differently. He needs another job that's just more fulfilling. And she was like, I don't care like what your motivation is, cross it off. It's not about you. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it affects me. Like it's our relationship and our family. And she's like, yeah, but ultimately he is the only one that can do that. He is the only one that can quit his job. He is the only one that's going to know the right career step for him. And I was like, kind of mad for a second. I'm like, that's stupid. I hate that. She was like, I don't care, cross it off. So I did. I crossed it off and I was like, I'll surrender. So then after that experience, I started really realizing this very thing. And once again, you know it, like you're like, oh yeah, I don't control other people, but like living it and really fully embracing that concept is very, very different. So that brings me to my caveat. I got distracted on my caveat. Just because you can't control someone doesn't mean you have to take their crap. I feel like sometimes feel like I'm gonna swear, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, what if my grandpa listens to this? But he doesn't even know how to work podcasts. I think I'm safe. But the whole point of this, wow, I digress fully. Squirrel moment was the quote that I shared. That I said that stop wasting your energy on trying to control other people when you could instead use that energy to love them. That's what I'm talking about. So I posted that, and I have a friend that messaged. She was like, who is in the process of leaving a toxic relationship, and she was like, haha, this doesn't always work. And I'm like, okay, yes, that is the exception. Although still don't expend energy in trying to control them because you can't, but that also doesn't mean you have to expend the energy to love them. Now, does it take more energy to hate a person than to love? Yes. Does love mean you have to stay with a person that's unhealthy or stay in an abusive relationship or tolerate someone's unhealthy behaviors or be the brunt of someone's shit? No, it does not mean that, right? But I do believe that you can, at some point in your life, eventually send good things back to someone, even if they're a crappy human. And once again, that also boundaries are still there. Like if they are a jerk, if they are unhealthy, set a boundary, but it takes more energy. It's a different frequency to send hate than it is to send love. So might as well just be like, you know what? I don't need that in my life, or that person is not healthy, but I hope they find peace. I hope they find health. I hope they find happiness. I hope they find, success in whatever they do, even though that success and that isn't going to be with me. So that's the caveat. Don't ever tolerate abuse or anything like that. You deserve better. Always. There's no exception to that. But the concept of trying to change someone, once again, even from a good place, it's a moot point. And it might sound silly. Like I said, it's like a simple concept to explain in a lot of ways, but living it is hard because, once again, we try to control from a place of safety or love. Like, let's use the gym example. You probably want the person to go to the gym because you want them to take care of their physical health, right? But the energy you're expending trying to change when they are the one that can only make that choice, what if you were instead just giving love for where they're at, for the person they are, for all the good things they have to offer? Then that relationship would change. And this took me a long time to learn. I thought for a long time I could love someone enough to change them. I don't know if it's messaging I received as a child. I don't know if it's Disney movies. I don't fully know what it was, and that's okay. I don't have to know. But for much of my life, I dated projects, right? I dated men that were unhealthy. I dated men like emotionally, mentally, and sometimes physically, honestly. I dated these people and that I quote unquote, and it took me a while to even recognize it, that I could fix, right? And that's because I had been told I was a compassionate person. And I am a compassionate person. I had been told I'm good at helping people, and I am good at helping people, right? But you can't change someone that's not willing to change themselves. So I found myself in multiple romantic relationships where I'm like, oh my gosh, if I just love them enough, they'll change because they love me. If I just love them enough, then they'll stop doing X, Y, or Z. If I just love them enough, then they'll change this behavior that's unhealthy for them and unhealthy for me, right? But all that did in the process was make me lose myself because I was tying my self-worth, my value to their ability to change. They're two different points, right? My love is independent of their changing. But I couldn't separate the two. I was trying to love them so much to change. So then when they didn't change, when they kept up with the unhealthy behavior, when they kept up with the negative patterns, what did I do? I took that on me. It's my fault, right? I didn't love them enough. I'm not doing enough for them. So therefore it's my fault. So my self-esteem started to absolutely plummet. It was just down in the ground. It was real low. And it might not have appeared that way on the outside. I want to say it probably did. Like, maybe I thought I was faking confidence, but I'm sure there are people who could see right through it. But I had so much of my value, my identity tied to that piece that like I'm going to help change them. That when they didn't, it was crushing. It like crushed my soul. And then it also became, there was a resentment piece, once again, resentment, because I was like, why can't you do this for me? If you love me, you'll change. That's not what it's about. Almost always, probably always. I'm like, is there ever an exception to this? It's about them. They're not doing, there are, once again, there are the exceptions. There are unhealthy people that are legitimately hurting people that are doing it deliberately. I would say most of the time, barring my friend's really shitty marriage, most of the time, the people that you're trying to change are operating with the best tools that they have. They are operating out of the capacity they are the most able to. Their lens, their worldview, their life experiences, their traumas, the big T traumas and the little T traumas, right? They are different than yours. And so that's going to show up differently for them. So if they are not changing, it's not because of you. It's not because you're not loving them. It's not because you're not motivating enough. It's not because you're not a good person. And honestly, most of the time, it's not because they're not a good person either. They probably are a great person, just operating from a lens of being human, of broken pieces. So until they make the choice to change, you have to just surrender. You have to just accept and love them where they're at. That's the hard part. So in the process of doing that, What else can you control? Comes back to what I mentioned at the beginning about February and the month of love and giving yourself some love. What you can do is you can choose yourself. And this is once again, right? This is what Tyler and I talked quite a bit about on the podcast we were on. It's not selfish to choose yourself. It's not. And that is not what I grew up hearing from TV, movie, Disney movies, my family, church, all the different places, right? I received the messaging over and over again that choosing yourself was selfish and that true love required selflessness. So once again, that's that self-love piece, right? Where it's not selfish to take care of yourself. Now, there is an element of selflessness required in any relationship. Like, in that, like, you know what? Let's give it a Google. What is the definition of selfless? I don't agree with it. Concern more with the needs and wishes of others than one's own. I don't actually agree with that. As I'm reading it, I'm like, nope. I think that for a relationship to be successful, there has to be a little element of selfishness. Now, can you, like, should you take care of your person? Yes. Like, I find ways to show Tyler I love him all the time. He does the same for me. Like, we're not only thinking about ourselves, but what we do is we take ownership for ourselves by taking time to give ourselves love, however that may be. So it might be like, for me, I get fueled by a girls' night, like with people that I love. I love other women. Like, I love chit-chatting with other ladies and just, chit-chat about silly stuff, or like, I love things like book club and cookbook club. Like, they fuel me, they light me up inside. So me doing those things is a way for me to take care of myself. Sometimes my self-care looks like just leaving and going and wandering home goods quietly with no children, right? It's not selfish to do that. I love self-development, so I do courses to help better myself pretty consistently. Not selfish. That does not make me a selfish person. And Tyler does the same. Like, he does courses. He's gone on retreats. He will be like, hey, I'm going to take the afternoon off and try to leave work an hour too early and get some golf in, and I might be home late. And what we don't do, I actually had someone compliment us the other day, which was funny because we didn't realize anyone noticed. But we have made a conscious choice to not keep receipts for that. I don't know the total number of hours he has spent golfing in the last couple of months. I don't know how many golf trips he's been on in our marriage. I don't know. I don't care, because it helps him fuel his cup. So I let him do it. And I'm not like, I really genuinely am not like, oh my gosh, he's golfing again. I'm like, cool, sweet. He's outside interacting with other dudes. Like, good for him, right? And then the same for me. He's not like, oh my gosh, another girls' night. Like, I have to watch the kids again. He's like, sweet, put it on the calendar. Let's make it happen, right? Part of that, he's really good about that. He doesn't resent taking care of the children, which is good because they're his kids too. I still don't like when people are like, oh, I gotta babysit my kids. I'm like, are we not over that? Is that not something we've all agreed on, that you're not babysitting your own children? You're just watching them. You're just taking care of them. But we don't keep receipts. We don't, because there might be a month or a week where I have 3 events or 4 things and he puts the kids to bed most of the nights. But then there might be a time where he's got a golf trip for 5 days, and keeping receipts doesn't work. It doesn't help the situation. And what happens is, when we're both fueling our cups, giving ourselves love, improving ourselves, which, like I said, we both do like a lot of self-development type stuff. When we're both doing that independently, what that means is when we come together, we show up better. We show up 100%. And then I think that's that selfless piece, like, to an extent, that can come into play. I have more to give because I have my cup's full, right? Like, we hear it 1,000 times. We hear it all the time. You gotta fill your cup before you give to others. But why don't we live it then? Or why, when we're trying to live it, do we resent the other person when they do the same, or vice versa? So if that's happening in your relationship, I feel like you just need to have a chat. You need to be like, hey, let's talk about keeping score. We both do it. Or I feel like, you can use an I feel statement. Like, I feel like we need to make sure that we're not keeping score because I need X, Y, and Z as of now, and you're subject to change. Maybe it's like, hey, I need to be able to have 3 hours a week that I have to myself to do whatever I want. So if you can, when you come home on Tuesdays, I'm just going to leave right when you get home and you're in charge of dinner that night and get the kids down. Maybe there'll be pushback. I don't know relationship, but it is important. It really is because, and once again, you'll see over time that lets you show up better for your relationships, the people in your life, because you're loving yourself and you cannot give love if you don't have love for yourself. You really can't. If you are having a hard time loving others, if you're having a hard time loving your partner or your children or the people in your life or strangers on the street, if you just feel like you don't have a lot of love to give, grab a mirror. I'm sorry. And you're welcome. This became like kind of like a hard love, I'm kind of laying it down. But grab a mirror and look in the mirror and give yourself some love first. Because if you cannot love yourself, once again, I feel like I wish there was other verbiage to use around that because it seems cliche to be like, just love yourself and things will get better. But it will. Like if you truly start to like appreciate who you are, the things that you do, if you start doing the work and do the inner child reparenting and do the stuff to regulate your nervous system, you give yourself good food and you're taking care of your body, you're taking care of your spirit, you're taking care of your mind, you will have more. And as you do that, you will start vibrating with more love. And guess what that does? That's what changes someone else. Not talking about it, not wishing they would change, not being resentful when they're not. As you change, because you're the only person you can control, your frequency changes. Your literal vibration of your energy, of your body, the love you have from your heart that you're operating out of changes. And that's what changes someone else because they feel it. And even if they can't identify it, they start to feel more love. And instead of feeling criticized or attacked or constantly picked on or like, once again, even if it's from a place of love that you're doing it, just focus on you. You're what you control anyway. And then they'll start to change. They will, I promise. And I think that's the coolest thing ever. That, once again, part of it is like, shiz, I can't control someone. But then there's that super empowering piece that's like, oh, wow. It's really only me I can control. And I can just surrender the rest. I can surrender trying to control others. I can surrender trying to make that person do this. Even if it's for their better. Even if your brother is dating a loser. I can say that right now because my brother's dating someone really, really cool who we actually love. Love you, Maddie. But let's say he was dating a loser. Even if I'm like, you should break up with her because she sucks. Like, I don't control that. I'm not in the relationship. I'm not him. I don't know. What does me trying to control that situation do? Nothing. It only takes away from the energy I have to actually change the things within my control, which are the things that I can do. Is it making sense? Am I getting repetitive? Maybe a little bit. So I will end there. I will end with those thoughts that give yourself some love to start off this February. Make some goals if that will help you. If you're like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to take 3 hours a week for me, or I'm going to take 1 hour a week to journal. Or it's, hey, I want to sign up for that course. I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell my husband that's what I need to show up better in our marriage and to show up better for our family. It's not selfish. It's not. And contrary to any messaging you receive that says otherwise, taking care of yourself is one of the best things you could do for other people. So, I love you. You're doing great. I can't wait to talk to you again next week. You did it. We did it. January 2:30 on a Friday, January 31st. So I feel like I can say January is officially over and I can't wait to see what February holds. I love you so much. Thank you for tuning in. And if you liked what you heard, I would love if you would share this podcast and drop a review and a rating. That's the best way for me to get more content out there and to reach more people, more women that need the messages that you hear here. So thank you so much and have the best day ever.